Hello students, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Your English Teacher. Today we are going to do the line-wise text explanation of the chapter The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse by William Saroyan. This is the first chapter of your 11th standard textbook, Snapshots. Before this video, I have given a small introduction in another video. And in the videos after this, I'll be dealing with a separate just for exams section, which will deal with the SAQs and a separate video on the long answer questions. So please do stay subscribed to this channel, and I hope you will be able to benefit from it. So, The Summer of a Beautiful White Horse is a short story by William Saroyan in which Adam's cousin Morad steals a horse and attempts to teach Adam to ride it. One of the major themes of The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse is honor. And the young boy Adam is going to explain the underlying philosophies of his large extended Garogleanian family. Although they were poor, they had pride and morals. When his cousin Morad appears at his window in the early morning light, Adam has to justify the horse his cousin has in town. We were proud first, honest next, and after that we believed in right and wrong. None of us would take advantage of anybody in the world, let alone steal. I quoted these lines from the text, which explains that the major theme of this story is honor. And in this video, before this one, I had asked you to let go of all other intentions to try to find out deep-rooted meanings in the chapter. I want you to go with the flow and enjoy the innocence of these children, how their perspectives reflect their innocence and how they think very differently from the adults. So let's go to the first page. One day back there in the good old days, when I was 9 and the world was full of every imaginable kind of magnificence, and life was still a delightful, mysterious dream, my cousin Morad, who was considered crazy by everybody who knew him except me, came to my house at 4 in the morning and woke me up tapping on the window of my room. Adam, he said. I jumped out of the bed and looked out of the window. I couldn't believe what I saw. It wasn't morning yet, but it was summer, and with daybreak not many minutes around the corner of the world, it was light enough for me to know I wasn't dreaming. My cousin Morad was sitting on a beautiful white horse. I stuck my head out of the window and rubbed my eyes. Yes, he said in Armenian, it's a horse. You're not dreaming. Make it quick if you want to ride. So just imagine you wake up, you're hardly, the age of the child is not given here yet, but yes, it's given, 9 years old. So, and you rub your eyes and what do you see? You see a dream come true. Your cousin is there with a white horse, a beautiful white horse, and he's asking you to come and take a ride on it. What is suggestive of the opening line of the chapter? One day back there in the good old days. What does it suggest? It is suggestive of the reminiscing tone. He's remembering that the story was narrated in that sense that one day this happened. It signifies that the anecdote that is going to be narrated is not of recent past, and it belongs to a golden period of his childhood when the things were good. So you can understand how this opening line makes a difference to what the reader is to expect. Who were Adam and Morad? They were cousins. Adam was 9 years old, and later onwards in the story we'll get to learn that Murad was 13 years old. Both of them were fond of horse riding and they belonged to the Garoglenian tribe of Armenians. I knew my cousin Murad enjoyed being alive more than anybody else who had ever fallen into the world by mistake. But this was more than even I could believe. In the first place, my earliest memories had been memories of horses, and my first longings had been longings to ride. This was the wonderful part. In the second place, we were poor. This was the part that wouldn't permit me to believe what I saw. We were poor. We had no money. Our whole tribe was poverty-stricken. Every branch of the Garoglenian family was living in the most amazing and comical poverty in the world. Nobody could understand where we ever got money enough to keep us with food in our bellies. Not even the old men of the family. Most important of all, though we were famous for our honesty, we had been famous for our honesty for something like 11 centuries. Even when we had been the wealthiest family in what we like to think was the world, we were proud first, honest next, and after that we believed in right and wrong. None of us would take advantage of anybody in the world, let alone steal. Consequently, even though I could see the horse, so magnificent, even though I could smell it, so lovely, even though I could hear it breathing, so exciting, I couldn't believe the horse had anything to do with my cousin Murad or with me or with any of the other members of our family, asleep or awake, because I knew my cousin Murad couldn't have bought the horse, and if he couldn't have bought it, he must have stolen it, and I refused to believe he had stolen it. I'd like to stop here and come directly to these questions. These are automatically going to discuss and answer and explain the whole paragraph. How does the narrator describe the Garoglenian family over here? The Garoglenian family had a reputation for honesty that has been maintained by its family members for hundreds of years. Everyone trusted them. These people took pride in the fact that they were honest in spite of their poverty. Why did the sight of Murad's horse both delight and frighten him? Because it delighted him, that was the wonderful part. And what frightened him? Because they were poor. Adam was just a young lad. Understand, he was truthful and honest, but he had a longing to have a joyride on a horse. Naturally, he was delighted when Murad asked him to sit on the white horse, but he was also frightened because he came to a conclusion that he could not have ever bought the horse, and if he could not have ever bought it, he must have stolen it, and he was not ready to accept that his cousin Murad could have ever stolen it because they belonged to the Garoglenian family. I hope you've understood this, children. Okay? Now, what did the narrator see when he looked out of the window? Why couldn't he believe his eyes at all? The narrator heard a tap. Remember tapping on the window of his room. When he looked out, he saw his cousin Murad sitting on a beautiful white horse, and he could not believe his eyes because Murad belonged to a poor family. He could not afford to buy such a lovely horse. Surely he had stolen it. How did Aram justify Murad's action of riding a stolen horse? We're going to come to this later, once I read this. No member of the Garoglenian family could be a thief. He had come to this conclusion. I stared first at my cousin and then at the horse. There was a pious stillness. Pious is religious, and a humor in each one of them. On the hand, that delighted me, and on the other hand, it also frightened me, which we had already answered over here. What was it? It was like a holy piousness around that whole caricature with Murad sitting on a white horse. It's like a halo had developed around him. Them. Murad, I said, where did you steal this horse? Leap out of the window, he said, if you want to have a ride. It was true then. He had stolen the horse. There was no question about it. He had come to invite me to ride or not as I chose. Well, it seemed to me stealing a horse for a ride was not the same thing as stealing something else, such as money. For all I knew, maybe it wasn't stealing at all. If you were crazy about horses the way my cousin Murad and I were, it wasn't stealing. It wouldn't become stealing until we offered to sell the horse, which of course I knew we would never do. So when we come back to this question over here, how did he justify Murad's action of riding a stolen horse? Adam too was very crazy about the horse. He also wanted to have a joyride. He was both delighted and he was both frightened. He justified Murad's action, saying that taking out a horse just for a joyride could not be called stealing until and unless they offered to sell it. So understand, children, these are children who just want to have a joyride. We have to understand their perspective about it. So he said, let me put on some clothes, I said. So Adam, after all that contemplation, finally decided he should not miss this opportunity. All right, he said, but hurry. I leaped into my clothes. I jumped down the yard from the window and leaped up onto the horse behind my cousin Murad. That year we lived in the edge of the town, on Walnut Avenue. Behind our house was the country vineyards, the orchards, the irrigation ditches, the country roads. In less than 3 minutes, we were on the Olive Avenue, and then the horse began to trot. Trot is the way, the name given to the action of walking of a horse. The air was new and lovely to breathe. The feel of the horse running was wonderful. My cousin Murad was considered one of the craziest members of our family and began to sing. I mean, he began to roar. That means he sang in such a loud manner that it is hardly singing, it was roaring. Every family has a crazy streak in it somewhere, and my cousin Murad was considered to be the natural descendant of the crazy streak in our tribe. Before him was our Uncle Khosrov, an enormous man with a powerful head of black hair and the largest moustache in the San Juan Valley. A man so furious in temper, so irritable, so impatient that he stopped anyone from talking by roaring. It is no harm, pay no attention to it. That was all. No matter what anybody happened to be talking about, once it was his own son, Arak, running 8 blocks to the barber shop where his father was having his moustache trimmed to tell him the house was on fire. The man Khosrov sat up in the chair and roared, "It's no harm, pay no attention to it." The barber said, "But the boy says your house is on fire." So Khosrov roared, "Enough, it's no harm, I say, pay no attention to it." My cousin Murad was considered the natural descendant of this man. Although Murad's father was Zorab, and who was a practical man and nothing else. That's how it was in our tribe. A man could be the father of his own son's flesh, but that did not mean that he was also the father of his spirit. That means that he will not take up the qualities of his father. There's a possibility he may take up certain characteristics of another person. The distribution of the various kinds of spirit of our tribe had been from the beginning very capricious and vagrant. We rode and my cousin Murad sang. For all anybody knew, we were still in the old country where, at least according to some of our neighbors we belonged. We let the horse run long as it felt like running. And last my cousin Murad said, "Get down, I want to ride alone." "Will you let me ride alone?" I asked. "That is up to the horse," my cousin said. "Get down. The horse will let me ride." I said, "We shall see," he said. "Don't forget that I have a way with a horse." So Murad is the one in charge here, and over here Murad is in a patronizing tone saying that I know how to deal with horses. So going back to this page over here, there's a description that Murad is actually has a crazy streak in him. See, he's singing loudly, he's gone to the extent of stealing a horse, and somehow, despite the fact that Murad's father, Zorab, was a very practical, sensible man, he has not taken after Zorab. In fact, he's taken characteristics after Khosrov, who is a very, very crazy man who didn't even bother when his own house was on fire, and to anything he always used to say, let it be, no harm, pay no attention to it, it's no harm, and he would never ever have any solution to anything. So what did the narrator think of Murad? See, the narrator was probably the only person who was not prejudiced against Murad. See, everybody thought him to be crazy, and Aram had somewhat regard for Murad's craziness, his uninhibited lifestyle, and he knows that Murad believes in living each day to its fullest, that had fallen into this world by mistake, if you remember the previous page. Okay, so he was very fond of his cousin Murad, and maybe because of that he knew that was one of the reasons why he could fulfill his dream of riding a horse. How did Aram justify the act of stealing the horse? Aram in his childhood was not introduced to the dogmas of the world. So for him, stealing had only one definition. If you steal for money. But in his conscience, he knew very well that Murad had done what he had done was actually stealing. But the simple and innocent nature of this his childhood compelled him to justify his act as an act of pleasure. For stealing the horse to ride was not same as stealing the horse for selling it for money. So he somehow justified that. Now let us go to this here. So he's in a patronizing tone, and he says, for the sake of your safety, he said, let us hope so. Get down. All right, I said, but remember, you've got to let me try to ride alone. I got down and my cousin Murad kicked his heels into the horse and shouted, Wazir, run! The horse stood on its hind legs, snorted, and burst into a fury of speed that was the loveliest thing I had ever seen. My cousin Murad raced the horse across a field of dry grass to irrigation ditch. Now they're going to describe what path he takes. The sun was coming up, and now it's my turn to ride, I said, and my cousin Murad got off the horse. Right then, he said. I leaped on to the back of the horse and for a moment knew the most awful fear imaginable. It's another thing to desire to ride it alone, but once you're on an animal that huge, double your size, you realize that it could be really scary. The horse did not move. Kick into his muscles, my cousin Murad said. Remember, he has a way with the horses. What are you waiting for? We've got to take him back before everybody else in the world is up and about. So understand, here he has to keep it back. I kicked into the muscles of the horse. Once again it roared and snorted and it began to run. I didn't know what to do. Instead of running across the field to the irrigation ditch, the same path that it took when Murad was riding it, it took the road down to the vineyard of Dikra and Halabian, and where it began to leap over the vines. The horse leaped over 7 vines before I fell. Then it continued running. Now, my cousin Murad came running down the road. You would have wondered maybe he's come because he's worried that Aram has fallen down. But he said, I'm not worried about you, he shouted. We've got to get that horse. You go this way and I'll go this way. If you come upon him, be kind. I'll be near. Be kindly. That means don't treat him badly. Be kind. I continued down the road and my cousin Murad went across the field toward the irrigation ditch. It took him half an hour to find the horse and bring him back. All right, he said, jump on. The whole world is wide awake now. What will we do? I asked. So Aram is scared. Well, he said, we'll either have to take him back or hide him until tomorrow morning. He didn't sound worried. And I knew he'd hide him. and not take him back. Not for a while at any rate, because his body language and the way he spoke didn't show that he was scared. Where will we hide him? I know a place, he said. How long ago did you steal this horse? I said. It suddenly dawned on me that he had been taking these horse early morning rides for quite some time and had come for me this morning only because he knew how much I longed to ride. So he has come after maybe a month. Who said anything about stealing a horse when he said that how long ago did you steal the horse? Anyhow, I said, how long ago did you begin riding every morning? So he reframed the answer because he got scared that maybe Murad would no longer entertain his wish to ride the horse when he accused him almost of stealing the horse. So what was Adam's experience when he rode the white horse alone? Adam was taken very keen to ride it. Okay, but it was a different feeling altogether when he was on that horse on his own. And he leaped to the horseback and even tried to kick into its muscles. It snorted and it began to run and it went out of control. It leaped over 7 vines and it took another route and went down the vineyard of Dikran Halabian, and Adam fell down, but the horse continued riding. So let's see what happens ahead. Oops, sorry, I think so I've gone 2 pages ahead. No, we've done this. Let's come here. Okay. So, not until this morning, he said. That means, are you telling the truth? That means, he said, Murad said that I've started riding it just now. And somehow Adam didn't believe him. Of course not, he said. But if we have found out that's what you are going to say, I don't want us both to be liars. All you know is that we started riding this morning. Is it okay? And he said, all right. Imagine these are kids who are planning what to tell if they get caught, which is very natural, very normal. Every one of us has maybe done this sometime in our lifetime. So children, I'm going to end up here, and in the next video we're going to start this because this is a half-an-hour video in which I think so I want you to understand whatever has been read till now, and in the next video I'll be taking up the remaining portion of this chapter, which is going to then complete the explanation of the chapter. Fine. So do visit the chapter video in continuation to this. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great day, children.